India is home to over 1 billion people, speaking hundreds of languages, divided by thousands of miles of geography, ethnic backgrounds, and local customs. Yet, roughly 80% of this incredibly diverse population falls under a single religious umbrella: Hinduism. The name Hindu actually began as a geographic label. The ancient Greeks invented the word to describe the land and the people living beyond the Indus River. Because of that vast timeline, we face a massive historical blind spot. The people who built the true foundations of Indian culture, the original inhabitants of the subcontinent, left absolutely zero written records for the first 48,000 years of their existence. The history of those first 50 millennia exists outside of traditional texts. To find it, we have to look at the records preserved in human biology and on the walls of rock shelters. Between 50 and 70,000 years ago, during the last ice age, bands of early humans migrated out of Africa. Following a now submerged coastal route, they crossed into South Asia and settled deep within its mountains and forests as nomadic hunter-gatherers. We can track these ancient movements through haplogroup M. This is a specific sequence of mitochondrial DNA, a type of genetic code passed intact exclusively from a mother to her children, which allows us to map unbroken female lineages backward across tens of thousands of years. This geographic heat map shows the distribution of maternal lineages across modern India. As it lights up, it reveals that haplogroup M is almost everywhere. It remains the dominant maternal lineage across the entire subcontinent today, crossing over modern social castes, regional boundaries, and linguistic divides. This genetic footprint indicates the modern Indian population is biologically tethered to those original indigenous tribes. No matter what languages were adopted later, the biological foundation of the entire culture was set by ancient hunter-gatherers. For tens of thousands of years, these tribes were the only people in India. They didn't write, but they did paint. At sites like the Bhimbetka rock shelters in central India, we have a continuous 30,000-year-old visual record painted directly onto the stone. The earliest layers of this art show a world of total abundance. The tribal painters recorded a peaceful ecosystem filled with native wild animals, like elephants, deer, and buffalo, hunted by men on foot. But between 7,000 and 3,000 BCE, the artwork records a shift in the ecosystem. Unfamiliar domesticated animals begin appearing on the rock walls. These are horned cattle, accompanied by armed men, signaling that agricultural settlers were encroaching on tribal territory. The genetic record shows that while the male lineages of these new villages were diverse, the female lineages remained almost entirely tribal. This was a one-way, gender-specific process. The male farmers brought tribal women into their new agricultural households. These women brought their culture with them. Today, roughly 1/3 of the plant names in the later Sanskrit language, including staples like eggplant and millet, have no origin in the farmers' languages. They were tribal words, preserved because tribal women brought their knowledge of the forest and its resources into the very first settled villages. That synthesis is highly visible in modern Hindu belief. The ancient tribal reverence for the natural world was absorbed into the village settlements, permanently weaving plant and animal symbolism into the broader religious system. Even the geography of the tribes was absorbed. The remote mountains and deep forests that originally provided refuge for the hunter-gatherers were reimagined as the sacred domains of powerful deities, like Shiva, the divine yogi meditating in the Himalayas. Hinduism emerged from this ancient interaction, retaining threads of prehistoric tribal life within its settled traditions. But the tribal rock art reveals that this slow blending of cultures was eventually challenged. Around 1500 BCE, the paintings document the arrival of massive, fast-moving beasts that the tribes had never seen before: horses. In the caves of Chaturbhuj Nala, artists captured the speed of a new group, the Aryans. This was an aggressive culture equipped with metal swords, multi-spoked chariots, and a deep devotion to fire. What happens to an indigenous, nature-revering world when a Bronze Age military force crashes into it? The collision between these two cultures forged the final pieces of the Hindu tradition and prompted the Aryans to write down their beliefs in the sacred texts called